Hit it, boys.
This place, that'll rock this place, that'll rock this place, rock this place, rock this place, rock
Welcome to Winning in the Workplace, where we help executives, managers, and supervisors become better leaders individually and across departments as a strong collaborative team. I am your host, Maurice Velasquez, and this is Winning in the Workplace. Before we get started, let me remind you to please visit me at my website at mauricetraining.com. There you can download my 2 books and register yourself and your leadership team to my 12-week course, 2 hours a week, on how to get out of storming and how to become a stronger, more collaborative team. It's a fantastic course. It's a game changer. Register at mauricetraining.com. All right, today we're going to dive into emotional intelligence. And so what I'm going to do is hopefully give you a lot of practical things on how to start this journey regarding emotional intelligence. It has become, and thankfully so, a big topic in the last, I would say in the last 5 years. It's become even more needed, but it really came out in the late 90s. And over the past 20 years, it's become more and more important because we somehow have lost the art of focusing on really one of the most important aspects of work, and that is the relationships, the trust that must be had between individuals in order to move things forward together. All right. So why emotional intelligence? The primary reason is because technical skills are no longer, and they really never have been, but we've made a big deal about how important technical skills are. Are you a good attorney? Are you a good doctor? Are you a good nurse? Do you have your credentials? Most of our resumes, we spend 80% at the very top explaining our technical skills, which is great. We all need to. And we have to show our pedigree. We have to show our value. We have to show our experience. So without a doubt, technical skills are part of it, but we have emphasized so much of it. Then down at the bottom, the last part of the resume, we'll say things like additional things like I'm a good team member, I have great communication skills, and they happen to be just an afterthought. At least we treat it that way, but yet we don't realize that most of us get our jobs, we get hired on the technical skills with a hope that the stuff at the bottom is real. Because overwhelmingly, most of us get hired, our careers get paused, but yet most of us get fired, or we cause our careers to be put on hold, or we get demoted, or we get moved around because of those things at the bottom of the resume. So we get hired because of our technical skills, but we get fired because of the stuff at the bottom. About 10 years ago, I went to my nephew's graduation ceremony at LSU, and an Army general, but I believe he was in the Navy. He was speaking very highly about the importance of being sharp at work, and of course, really good application. And towards the end of his talk, he reminded everybody of this fact. He said, look, you have not wasted your money. All of you have done a fantastic job getting your technical degrees, but remember, your life is dictated by how you build relationships and the stuff at the bottom of your resume. And then he's the one that said it out loud the first time I'd ever heard it. So emotional intelligence is the ability to balance that. Okay, it's to where we can build relationships and show that we have the ability to be fluid, to work well with others, especially with those who disagree with us and in tough situations. So it's become a real critical need. And today I'm going to help hopefully demystify it and give you some practical steps in the journey. All right, so first thing we're going to talk about is what is emotional intelligence? So what is emotional intelligence? Emotional intelligence is the ability to manage both your emotions and understand the emotions of people around you. Okay. The second half is absolutely the most critical. But the problem that becomes difficult for all of us is because the first part is where we also have a big gulf, big gap in understanding our own emotions. And so emotional intelligence says, better understand your emotions. And through that journey and that self-realization, it's called self-awareness, through that realization, then you can better understand the emotions of others. Okay. So again, emotional intelligence is the ability to manage both your emotions and understand the emotions of the folks around you. All right. So there's 5 components to emotional intelligence, and here they are. All right. First of all, self-awareness, emotional control, motivation, empathy, and social skills. Now, today we're going to cover empathy first and then backtrack our way to self-awareness. All right, there's a reason for it. I think these are the most practical ones. And I think that everything else in the series of the 5 elements of emotional intelligence are based on whether we can actually become empathetic. First of all, we got to kind of really agree what that is. And then how do we become self-aware? Once we can establish a little basis for that, then it's a whole lot easier to jump into the skills on how to make this practical. All right. So let's tackle the first one. What is empathy? All right. Empathy is the ability to understand another person's thoughts and feelings in a situation from their point of view rather than from our point of view. All right. So obviously, the most difficult part of that statement is right there, what I have underlined. It's from their point of view rather than your own. I mean, it's easy for me to get excited about what I agree with, but whenever you start saying things that you don't agree with, well, then I'm going to react in a different way. Or whenever somebody is saying something that I just don't think that it's going to go anywhere, then I'm going to react a certain way. All right. So the ability to have good emotional intelligence has to do with empathy. And empathy requires for me to think about what the other person is saying, what the other person is opinionating, all right, and being able to interact in such a way to where I don't react in a negative way. All right, so let me give you some examples. All right, here's a picture of 2 individuals who are looking at the same number, but they're viewing it from a different angle. Why? Because it's the number 9. We'll see. For those of you that are watching this, if you're only hearing this through voice audio podcast, it's the number 9. But of course, one person is standing on the side where it's 9, and the other person is where they're standing on the side where it says 6. So is it a 6 or is it a 9? All right. So they're both correct, but they're viewing it from their own perspective. And therein lies the basis of empathy. It's recognizing that most of the time, I would say all the time, well, let's just leave it at most of the time, okay? That most of the time, the person is seeing the issue from a perspective where I'm not standing, so therefore it makes no sense to me. And we have to be able to recognize that. But what we do is we quickly jump to the opinion that we see from our perspective only, and we put up walls extremely fast without taking the first step of seeking to understand that the other person is actually viewing it from a different perspective. And if I were to go over there and take a look at it from their perspective, I'd say, you know what? I see your point. Okay, I see what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. It doesn't mean that I agree with what you're saying. And see, that's a lot of the challenge, because when we ask each other, do you understand what I mean? What we tend to think is that the person is asking us, well, do you agree? So we tend to not say, yes, I understand what you're saying, but I don't agree. What we tend to say is, well, I don't agree, because we don't want to kind of give in to the fact that I understand what you're saying, because we have a hard time. I'm not just going to call it's ego. Okay. All of us have ego. Some of us more than others, some of us hide it better than others, but we have a really hard time recognizing that the other person is probably viewing it from a different angle. So empathy is the first act of recognizing that that things can be viewed a little different. Let me give you another example, okay? Here's one of a wall. Obviously, it's a brick wall. So I use this a lot in my workshops. I ask everybody, what else do you guys see? And some people say, oh, there's a mouse, or there's a rock. And then eventually somebody says, oh, there's a cigar, okay? And everybody's going, cigar? So there's no cigar there. And of course, half the crowd starts going, yeah, there it is. It's right there. Of course, I tell them, you can't point, you can't tell us what row it's at. And everybody's trying to look at it and go, there's no cigar. And the comments are hilarious. Yeah. What's wrong with you, man? It's right there. The feeling is a sense I don't see it. I just don't see it. But yet you're sitting on the same angle. I just don't see what you see. And the other person goes, why don't you see what I see? And there it is. It's lack of empathy. It's lack of recognizing that we as human beings, we can see the same accident. We can see this. We can see the same facts. We can see the same event and interpret it from different perspectives. Why? Because we all come into everything with biases, with history, with emotions, with some type of hurt or pain, or it associates something else, or different perspectives on the topic. So we can look at the same topic and view it from two different angles, but it's even more complex than that. We can actually be standing on the same side, like both of us looking at a brick wall, and I see the cigar, and the person next to me does not see the cigar. So where is the cigar? The cigar is right there. Okay. And then everybody goes, ah, there's the cigar. There's the cigar. Yeah, now you see what I'm seeing. Okay. And so empathy is the ability not necessarily to see the cigar. Okay. That's the key. We have to, emotional intelligence does not say that I have to see the cigar. Okay. Emotional intelligence does not mean that I have to see that you see a 9 and I see a 6. Okay. Emotional intelligence also doesn't say or doesn't teach that I have to agree with you that it is a 9 or that there is a cigar. Emotional intelligence, the first step is recognizing that you see a cigar and I don't see a cigar, that you see a 6 and I don't see a 6. So, okay, so what you're saying is this number is not, there's a cigar right there. I don't see it, but I hear you. I'm listening. Okay, I'm being empathetic to the fact that you have a different perspective on this and that I am going to withhold my judgment. I'm going to withhold my opinion. I'm going to withhold my disagreement, and I'm going to acknowledge the fact that, yeah, I see what you're saying. I understand why you want to do that. Here's another example, very popular one. All right. I like this, the old lady and the young lady. We have a lot of fun this in workshops. Some people see the young lady, some people see the old lady, some people don't see either. And again, the same conversation. Why is it that you don't see what I see? All right. And so things that EI, emotional intelligence, challenges is not in those areas where we walk in a room and we all agree. See, that's easy. That's where we show our best emotions. That's where we tend to go to why? Because we're agreeing. Okay. Oh, yeah, that's right. Oh, yeah, we ought to do that. Oh, yes. We tend to go to the emotions that we prefer when things are going well, when we like the idea, when things are moving in the right direction, or the conversation is going in what we consider to be. So those tend to be where we go to those emotions. But when it goes negative, or when it goes not necessarily negative, it's when it goes to somewhere where I don't favor, it's to where I don't think it should go to. That's what emotional intelligence is trying to ask. It says, what happens when somebody disagrees with you? Okay, how do you react? All right. The other one is, how do you react when somebody expresses an idea that you don't favor? Okay. Another one is, what about when somebody actually disagrees with you? Okay, because you're saying 9 and they quickly jump and they say, no, it's a 6. And they didn't even try to see it from your perspective. So I'm not going to be the adult in the room. I'm not going to try to understand them. They're obviously challenging me. I want to challenge back. So we get into this, tug of war. Why? Because, well, they started it. I just kind of went along, and so we all tend to just defend ourselves. Why? Because the other person challenged my 9, and all I said was 9, and they didn't validate me. They weren't emotionally intelligent towards me, and they challenged my 9 with a 6, and I'm sitting there going, well, no, I want to challenge you back. And yet none of us stopped long enough to say, we're not behaving like adults. We're behaving like kids. So let me stop and say, okay, so what you're saying is, what do you think I'm saying? And then the other person has to say, well, I think you're saying it. Yes, that's what I'm saying. Okay, I think we're understanding what we're saying. All right. Then once we've established that I am listening to you and you're listening to me, okay, well, now we can disagree. Okay, let's jump into the disagreement and the debate, but we've given each other not only the respect, but the foundation to have a good conversation. And those around can say, man, those two people, they argue well, they respect each other, and they know how to bring the conversation through the kernel of discussion, which is empathy, which is validating, which is listening to each other. Is what Covey says, seek to understand before you are understood. All right. So the other area is when somebody disagrees with you, and then when somebody does you wrong. Okay. And look, y'all, just because I think I'm a good teacher at this or I'm a good coach, it doesn't mean that, I hate to even admit, it doesn't mean that I'm good at this. I'm working really hard on those. And for those folks and those colleagues and my team members and my family members that are watching this, they're probably all rolling their eyes and going, man, does he need work on this? Maurice is horrible when you disagree with him. When he doesn't hear an idea he likes, oh man, he goes to bad places, and then we'll get that into in just a minute. All right. And if somebody disagrees with Maurice, man, I think 1 and 3 are really almost the same. So sorry, we can combine those. And number 4, when somebody does your own, Maurice is a fighter in different ways. And so the folks that know you better are the ones that kind of are been telling you, look, you're not good at this. All right. So we all have to say what Patrick Lencioni says, and we have to be humble. We have to be coachable. And these are the areas that we have to ask ourselves. Are we showing what we need to show? Are we showing the right emotions in those tough and difficult decisions? All right, so let me give you a couple of real examples. Number 1, I was at a company and we were about to start talking about this. And I said, all right, so let's pick a topic. Let's pick a topic that is not sensitive to everybody, because, it's good to practice on non-sensitive issues and then go into the sensitive issues, because practicing on non-sensitive issues really doesn't arouse the emotions. So when you practice this, especially in a workshop, or when your team watches this video and you guys practice this, you want to start first with items or topics that are not sensitive, and then practice your way into sensitive topics. All right. So I said, all right, so let's pick a topic that's probably not too say this. Let's talk about the parking lot. Okay. And no sooner did I say parking lot, man, there was a group of 20, 30 different managers and team leaders. And the reaction from about 4 of them was like, no, do not talk about the parking lot. And I was like, what happened? And sure enough, they had just recently had a very big to-do about the parking lot, where everybody parks, the governors, the visitors, the reserve sections and all that stuff. And it did not go well. Little did I know. And so, we stepped off of that topic, but eventually we went and practiced with that issue, because if you don't practice with a sensitive topic, then you're not really going to arouse the emotions. So another workshop that I did with a group of executives, I was talking about just the need for them to be open for ideas and how to react better and how to watch the emotions. So I said, all right, let's practice with somebody. And I called on a friend of mine, and he said, all right, go ahead, Maurice, go ahead, start. I said, all right, so let's just say his name is Andy. All right, Andy, what if I said to you, we need to change the number of meetings that your attorneys have with clients to reduce them? And I knew he didn't like that idea. And he said, oh, I can see that. And I said, all right, that's pretty good. So repeat it back to me. So he did. He repeated it back to me. I said, all right, good. And I did a couple of those real softies. And then I said this. I said, Andy, you're doing really great, really good. All right, so how about this one? Let's change the logo and the sign colors of your firm. And I mean, his reaction, I'm not going to say it here because I'd have to apologize for using French, but he cursed. He's like, no, absolutely not. And everybody laughed. I laughed. And of course, I said, all right, let's try this again. And I said, all right, I'm going to say the same thing, Andy. And I said, let's change your logo and the colors of your branding. And he just, all right, how about hell no? And we all laughed. I said, well, that was a little better. All right, so let's try it again. And he said, how about you pick on somebody else? And I said, no. Andy, we have to practice this. All right. Let's go to where you need to go to. Watch your emotions, grab the emotions. All right. And I said, look, I'm not saying this is what we're going to do. I'm saying let's practice. He said, yeah, but I don't want anybody in my team members to get any ideas about this. And I said, okay. Has this been an issue? He says, yes, it's been an issue. All right. So even more so, let's practice it. I said, sure, Andy, let's do it again. All right. So I think that your colors, you need to change your colors to your logo and your branding. And he did really well. He said, all right. So what you're saying is that we should probably go with the, and he repeated it back. And I said, very good. You could tell there was a lot of struggle. And he went further than that. He said, all right, so what would be, what kind of colors, and I said, oh, that's pretty good. You're actually going further than just acknowledging what I'm saying. You're actually now, you turn the conversation around. Now you're wanting to know more. You wanted to validate me more. And he said, yeah, all right, what colors? And I said, well, and of course I came up with some stuff. And the cool thing about that was that there was about 30 other folks, and it became a really good discussion of how executives tend to really shoot ideas down very fast. There was a bunch of managers in the room. They all admitted it. Yeah, we do what Andy did, and we do that all the time. All right. So another example, some technicians, they were in a corporate meeting and they were discussing with the owners and everybody, all the managers, and they were throwing ideas about marketing, advertisement. And some of the technicians really wanted their vans, which were white, to be wrapped with advertising, And no sooner did they said it, the owner and the VP of marketing shot the idea, and they were very, very negative about it. Okay. And so of course we encourage them, all right, guys, remember, grab that, and so they did a really good job. They repeated it back. And ultimately, surprisingly enough, about 9 months later, if you drive around our town, you'll see there's 75, 80 trucks, they're wrapped. Okay. It started off from a very tough discussion, but it went into good places because primarily those in the say-so, those decision makers were willing to empathize with what people were saying. All right. The last example I'm going to tell you is I was at a conference and we had the room divided into two groups, and they were doing a really good job. And there was one individual that was basically saying, I'm really good at this. I'm really good at that, and he was actually doing really well. And somebody in the other team said, I'm going to get him. I'm going to get him. And it was a very collegiate kind of thing. And he said, all right, so let me try, because the goal of the game was to try to break each other, see who could react. Kind of like the game that says, don't laugh, and you say dumb jokes and you try to make the other person laugh. All right, so it was kind of like this. It was one group trying to say things to get a reaction out of the others. All right, again, it's a really fun game during workshops. So he told him, he said, President Obama has been the best president in the world. And I mean, his reaction was just stellarly classical. He wasn't rude, crude, or anything, but he just couldn't do it. Okay. And then, of course, he turned around and shot back. And of course, I had to stop that conversation before it became real serious, But even me having just said that right now, I venture to say, because I've said this before, I venture to say some of you that are watching me or some of you that are listening kind of cringed, because politics is so sensitive, it becomes so polarized that we lost the art of having good discourse. So empathy basically says that what we need to do is recognize that the other person has a different opinion. We don't have to end up agreeing, but in the journey to try to figure out how we're going to collaborate, there's the first step where we have to listen to one another, validate one another, respect one another, okay? And then determine where we take the conversation from that place of understanding. All right, so this brings us right back to the issue of self-awareness. How is it that we are reacting whenever we are in a moment of disagreement? Okay, how is it that what are the emotions that we show? What are the behaviors that we manifest when things are not in agreement with us? And here you have on the screen easily 50 to 70 different emotions. You become reserved, or you become thoughtful or patient, or you become cowardly, or you become arrogant, or you become careless, or you become persistent, or you become brave or confident or calm. See, not all of us react the same way. So in emotional intelligence, in order to get good at this, it has to become tailored to you. We can talk in theory, we can talk in concept, but at the end of the day, and we're going to talk about this more in the next few minutes, it has to really come down to which ones are the emotions that you show. Whenever things are disagreeable or you disagree with others or others disagree, which ones are the things that you manifest that folks are seeing? Okay. All right. So the challenge is that because we think we're responding in a certain way is not necessarily how we are actually manifesting and how we're being perceived by others that we're responding. I think I respond sort of well to those questions or some of those issues or to those moments where I don't agree, but others around me regularly tell me that it's otherwise. Okay, Maurice, you're kind of edgy. Okay, Maurice, you're kind of sarcastic. All right, you got to stop your sarcasm, or you get silent real fast. I can tell when you're not agreeing because you go silent really fast. Your facial expressions are good, but you go quiet, and I pretty much know, Maurice, in about 90 seconds you're gonna come out. It comes out gracious, but it's strong. So you kind of, when you don't agree, Maurice, you kind of back up, kind of like a lion ready to prowl, right, ready to attack. And so that's you. That's how you react. All right. And yeah, man, you're pretty rough whenever you don't agree, you know. And so I've had people tell me that a lot in my life and my career. And for many years, I was just denying it. No, that's not me. No, I don't behave that way. You see, there it is. Okay. Either everyone around me is wrong about me, or I'm just not self-aware of how I'm coming across. Okay. Now, in order to tackle this, we have to tackle some myths. All right. In order to get ahead of this, we have to tackle two myths that are very popular. Let me show them to you. All right. The first myth is this. Okay. We tell ourselves, stop thinking about what people think of you. Okay. And you see this on the internet all the time. I mean, Facebook, Instagram, it's riddled with it. Okay. Of memes, of telling folks, don't worry about what people think of you. All right. Well, that's not true. Okay. The reality is that no, we have to stop worrying. We do have to stop worrying about what most people think about us, but not everybody. Okay. There are key people in our lives whose opinions matter, and we need to be coachable to that, and we need to be mindful of that. What that group is, we'll cover that in a few minutes. All right. That's the first myth. The second myth is this. Okay. It's that how people perceive me is their own fault. It's their own doing. I can't control it. Okay. And again, that you find that all throughout the internet. All right. I'm sorry. And see, I'm sorry if you kind of feel that way. And you hear that in the way people apologize. They say things like, I'm sorry that you feel that way. Sorry that you got your feelings hurt. I'm sorry that, you know, and so we throw it on the other person because really we don't see ourselves as owning that. How you felt is your own doing, and how you perceive me is your own doing. I had nothing to do with that. And that's a big myth. In order for us to become good at emotional intelligence, we have to get past that myth. We have to own our perception. Here's what that means, is that I'm responsible for how I view myself and how I think I'm acting, but I'm also responsible of how I may be incorrect about that. I may not have the right perspective on that. I may think I'm a good-natured, happy-go-lucky person, and yet I don't realize that throughout the day, I show negative things and I bring weaknesses to the table, and other people see that. See, every day we manifest our strengths and we manifest weaknesses. We bring good things to the table. We bring negative things to the table. We have mood swings, and not violent mood swings. Some of us do. But by and large, we go through the day showing positives and negatives. We do that a lot throughout the day. And so we bring what's called good mood behaviors and good mood emotions. And then we also bring in bad mood emotions and bad mood behaviors. Okay. But we most of us, well, actually, I would say all of us see ourselves mostly by our good mood, by how we view ourselves in a positive light. And we only really recognize that we showed a bad mood or a bad emotion because somebody else did something that caused that. But that's not really me. Okay. That's not really me. I'm positive, but I tend to go this because I'm put in bad situations. So we tend to have a defensive view to how we manifest it. We're not denying that we manifest it, but we have a reason for it. Okay. And we have, well, that person made me mad, or well, I just got jealous, or I just, I don't know what came over me. So we say a lot of things to kind of disconnect the responsibility that we bring to the negative things that we show, the negative emotions that we show. So we say things like this: I'm a good-natured person and a positive person, but yes, when I get upset, I tend to be edgy. See, that's not being self-aware, okay? That's saying that you describe yourself as positive, but that you're really negative. It wouldn't really happen if it wasn't for other people, okay? And that's the way we tend to approach life. And so emotional intelligence says, no, you have to own both sides, okay? And you have to be self-aware about the fact that you're the one that is bringing that to the table. All right. An emotional intelligent person would say something like, converts it to saying it like this: I see myself as a good-natured person, and that's the person I strive to be. But I need to work on my edginess and my defensiveness when things don't go my way. And I have to be careful that I do show those things a lot. See, there it is. You're basically saying, no one makes you mad. I choose to get mad. No one got me defensive. I chose to be defensive. No one got me in a bad mood. I chose to be in a bad mood. And so until we realize that we have the capability to grab our emotions and to be a sponge, kind of like to sponge the negative situation out of the room and to be that calming voice, or to be that calming element. And y'all, again, I want to tell you, I have been horrible at this my entire life. I think I've made some progress in the last, gosh, I hate to say this, in the past 3 years, okay, because it really has hit me very hard how much I was not willing to acknowledge it, that I really need to tackle this. I really need to own it. So owning it is the biggest factor of this. That's becoming self-aware. All right. Now, then the more practical element, and that is this: if we don't know which behaviors we go to, remember all the ones that I showed you earlier here on the screen? All right, here they are. Okay. These on the screen. If I don't know which ones, I mean, look at all that. Look at all that. I don't know where to start. I mean, yeah, some people say that I'm that, and some people say that I'm that, and some people say that where do I start? Okay, so if we don't know which behaviors we go to, well, then we're just going to guess. All right. And if we go to the ones that we hear others critique us on, well, there may be too many of them. Okay. So recognize that we all go to different behaviors. So we need to know which ones we go to. And the best way to do this is to take a personality test. Now, some of you have already reacted to that and have basically said, oh, no, those things don't work. And look, I would agree with you. Most of them don't have an emotion chart. Most of them speak only in terms of, this is your personality, this is what you tend to be like, but it doesn't have what's called an emotions chart or an attitude graph, or it's oftentimes called an intensity table. Here, let me show you one, okay? This is the one I absolutely love. So those of you that are listening, instead of the hodgepodge of emotions and behaviors that I showed you earlier, this intensity table lines them up, and it actually gives them a number, all right? And so it's a really powerful tool. So a personality test that does not have an intensity table or an emotional graph to show you the behaviors that you tend to go to when you're in a positive mood, and when you're in a negative mood, or when you're agreeing with something or you're disagreeing, when you go negative, which ones are the emotions, which ones are the attitudes that you show when you're negative, when you're being negative, okay? So by having a chart like that, it gives you an incredibly good visual to see what it's like. All right, so this is the way those work, all right? So for example, if I take this personality test, it's got this intensity table, and it tells me, look, Maurice, these are the emotions that you tend to go to, okay? You're domineering, you're demanding, you're forceful, you're a risk taker, you're adventurous, you're trusting, you're influential, you're pleasant, you're sociable, and you're generous. Yeah, Yeah, that's me. Yeah, I tend to overdo all those, but yeah, that's me. I like those. That's me. That's I love the part about being charming and being sociable and being promoting. And now there's one there close to it that's self-promoting. I may not agree with that, but yeah, that hits a little too close to home. But by having a chart like that, I can see, and then I can show it to others. I said, "Is this me? Is this what you're saying? Is this what you're saying?" And everybody say, That's you. That's you." You see, it gives you something to work on. It gives you something extremely practical. Now, you have to be willing for the other side of the coin. I guess you could say for the other shoe to fit. Right? It comes like this: is you have to be willing to look at this. That Maurice, when you're not in a good mood, okay, you become critical. Man, how long have I heard that? Okay, all right, Maurice, you become discontented. You become fidgety. That's the one. Everybody around me knows when Maurice is fidgety, something's wrong. And you ask him, "What's wrong?" And Maurice says, "Nothing. I'm fine." Okay. But I'm showing emotions that they know something's wrong. I'm just not willing to acknowledge it. I'm just thinking. They know I'm not thinking. They know I'm negative. And that's what this chart says. That when Maurice goes to fidgety, it's because he's in a bad mood because he's showing negative emotions. And I'm sitting there going the whole time saying, "No, I'm fine." But Maurice, you're fidgety. I'm not fidgety. Again, that's lack of self-awareness. I don't want to recognize that your view of my fidgetiness is negative and that I'm actually right now dealing with some negative thoughts. I'm thinking I become fidgety, and that's the way I show negative emotional behavior. So until we come to terms with the fact that, yeah, that's me. Yeah. Right now, I am fidgety. Well, let me think about it. I don't know what I'm upset about, but yeah, or I can't tell you what I'm about. But you see, self-awareness aligns you with the behaviors and the emotions that you should handle or that you should focus on, because none of us can tackle everything that's on this graph. There's no possible way. Now look at another one. Impetuous. I don't even have an idea what impetuous is. If I did, I forgot. All right. Restless. That's definitely me. All right. Now the next ones are the ones that really hit home. It says that Maurice goes negative he goes rebellious. Wow, rebellious. Man. Okay. He becomes defiant. He becomes obstinate. He becomes tactless. And there's the big one right there. Maurice becomes sarcastic. I can't tell you how many times in my life I'm told that. And it wasn't until around the year 2005 where I had taken already lots of personality tests. And when I took this one and it had an intensity table, wow. And my boss is the one that asked me to take it. He read my results first, then I read them, and I thought he is going to fire me. And so, no, he didn't fire me whatsoever. He asked me about the intensity. Maurice, what do you think? And I told him, I don't agree. And so he brought me through this course, the one that I'm showing you right now, and brought me through a journey of self-awareness. Okay. So having a self-awareness approach with a chart is an absolute better way than to just guess at. All right, let me show you another summarized version of it. All right, here's a summarized intensity table with not as many. I like this one a lot, again, because it doesn't have as many. So when I took this one, this is that one we actually use with all of our clients. Now, we also have the more detailed one available to you, so I can get both of these to you. But look at this one. All right, there's my positives: driving, forceful, daring, determined, competitive. Yes, that's me. Woohoo! Yeah, I'm persuasive. I like that. I'm inspiring. Woohoo! That's me. I'm enthusiastic. I think you can tell I'm enthusiastic. Okay, and I'm sociable. That's pretty good. All right, but then here it is. All right, Maurice is also outgoing. Well, that's not bad. That's not bad at all. Okay, I'm pretty outgoing. Let's see what's next. Restless. Ooh, there it is again. Active, but you see, active in a negative way. And then I become chaotic and spontaneous. Wow. Maurice, you're all over the place. Man, you can't stay on point for nothing. Okay. I actually ruined a Disney vacation because of that one time with the whole family. It was terrible. I don't want to get into that. But the whole point is, that's what came out. You are just all over the place, Maurice. Focus, stay on point. And then the other ones: I'm independent, I'm rebellious, I'm careless, I'm challenging. Okay. So what we need to be able to hone in on the right emotions, preferably with some kind of guide Take the personality test, okay? Get the right one. In a minute, I'll recommend to you the one we use, okay? And you hone in on 2 or 3 of those at a time. You pace yourselves. Here's the basic rule, is that you only improve on those things that impact the relationships at the core of yourself. So, for example, the core group of relationships that matter, should matter, and have the most impact on you: my supervisors, my peers, my team members below me. So my supervisors above me, my peers to my side, and the team members below me. What did they view? What did they perceive of me? Their opinion matters. Okay, again, that's the whole myth. This whole idea that people's opinions don't matter is not true. People keep their jobs and they grow in their careers because the people around them are supporting them, and the people around them are complimenting them being here. We have to be humble and recognize that. Okay, so again, let's go back to the group: my supervisors, my peers, my team members below me, people to the side of me, my close family members, okay, then my close friends. And don't miss this one, all right? The relationships that impact my spouse and my children. Here's what I mean by that, all right? My spouse has relationships that impact her life. How I interact with them impacts my wife, okay? So if my spouse is in that core circle, then the relationships that matter to that person should also be maybe not in the core center, but right around the edge, okay? The people that impact my children's lives, their friends, their teachers, okay? Again, those are not necessarily in the core of my circle. They're certainly on the outside of my inner circle. Why? Because the people that I care about the most impact them. Here's the way it works at work, okay? If my supervisor's opinion matters a lot, well, then their supervisor's opinion of them matters a lot. So I have to be mindful that when I'm talking to that person, it should impact me. So again, it's just being smart about the emotions and how we handle ourselves around those folks. And you want to think in concentric circles: the core group, the outer group, and always think up, to the side, and down, and then outside of how those people have their circles, and those relationships are important. All right, so let's go back and let's finish off with some practical steps on how to become more empathetic. I alluded to them earlier, but now I'm going to give them to you in a little more of a structured manner to practice them. So what you want to do is you want to practice with topics that are not as sensitive, all right? And then just practice empathizing back to the other person. All right, then you move to more sensitive topics, and the rule is this, okay? Do not give your opinion. When you're listening to the other person, okay, first of all, we need to stop interrupting each other as much as we do. And so, but when you listen to the other person, and when you can tell, okay, that person is going in a different direction, I don't like it, I don't like the way they're treating me, I don't like the way that they're headed, what you have to tell yourself is just tell this to yourself: no opinions, no judgment, no commentary. Now, do not give a staring silence, because see, that's what I tend to do, okay? No opinion, no judgment, no commentary. I made a lot of improvements because I used to do that all the time. I used to just blurt out, no, I don't agree. You know, so I've held back, but then I started going the other direction where I was able to control that, but then I started giving deadpan silence. And that's what people can tell. You're upset right now, okay? So you don't give back silence. What you basically is you jump in the conversation and you say, okay, I see what you're saying. Okay. See, I see what you're saying. I see. Okay, so I don't know that I necessarily agree. It's okay to say that. Say that in a good composure, in a good way. And you say, I don't know that I agree, but I don't know that I'm going to disagree right now, because I want to make sure I got you. All right. So what you're saying is, and then you repeat it back. You summarize it back to reflect what they said. And it has to be favorable to what they said. You can't spin it. You can't what's called straw man this. You can't make it look bad and then attack it. Or you can't make it look bad so as to prove your point. No, you're honestly detaching yourself from the topic, and you're almost becoming a good reporter that says, so what you're saying is, so what you're saying, and you're honestly, sincerely trying to validate the person and the opinion, because what you want to ask them after you said it, you want to be able to say, is that what you're saying? And if they can say, yes, that's what I'm saying, then you did a great job of showing empathy. You're beginning to get good at this first step of the journey of emotional intelligence. So hold your opinion, hold your judgment, hold your commentary, validate the other person, hear what they have to say, and repeat it back. We do this in small groups. I've done it with high school students. I've done it with junior high school students when, especially in history class or any topic, but in history and humanities class, when somebody says something about World War II and they said the most ridiculous thing, the other team's supposed to reply back and validate it. And this is how you teach young people critical thinking skills. This is how you teach them emotional intelligence to listen to each other rather than lash out what we become, a culture of polarized commentary. All right. So that's the first step. We'll pick up from here in our next podcast when we talk again about emotional intelligence. So if you want me to get you the intensity table, if you want to get the intensity tables that I showed you, and as well as all the emotional charts that I mentioned to you, go to my website, mauricetraining.com, click on downloadable files and get them from there. All right. If you want to take the survey, which shows you where you likely land on those mood behaviors in the intensity chart and the emotional chart, well, then go to my website, mydiscsurvey.com, mydiscsurvey.com, and take the survey. It's only $15. It'll send it to you automatically. I'll get a copy of it. I'll look at your results, and then I'll give you a holler. And I can do a free interpretation session to show you what it means and to apply to you so you can begin applying this right away. So don't delay. But if you're not able to do that, when we announce that we're going to do another podcast on emotional intelligence, come back and we'll go to the next steps of the journey. So remember, no opinion, no judgment. Repeat what they said and get a yes, that's what I mean. And then you can validate you guys are listening to each other. All right, until next time, thank you for joining me. This is Maurice. See you next week on Winning in the Workplace.